another exciting
Always
show
exciting.
for you. It's always
Always
exciting. On Today y Mañana, we're going to be joined at 10:30 by Ana Antigua. She's a realtor for Mi Casa Civil. And so that's going to be really...
We're going to learn a lot today, right?
I think we are. I think we are going to learn
because
a lot.
Real estate's so slow these days. I wonder what she's doing.
We're going to find out. We're going to find out. And then Xavier and I, we've got some little economic conversation.
Yeah, I think we should.
Talking what's going on with the economy. It's going to be...
It's not just going to be economics. It's like,
is it going to be
why is this
controversial?
Absolutely. Has to be.
It's always controversial.
With me, it has to be.
With Xavier, it has to be. And then after our interview today, we're going to have some additional information, a lot of webinars coming your way from the Central Virginia Small Business Development Center that definitely we'll share some news in English and in Spanish on some webinars there, especially on being SWAM certified, making sure that when you go to do business with state agencies that they know that you are a Latino-owned business and that you are a minority and small certified so that they can count you for their records when they do that. And so they definitely have an incentive to work with minority businesses, including Latinos.
Because sometimes you have to be certified for them to do that.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise they can't count you.
Exactly. Once you're certified, there's a lot of businesses that you can then participate in whatever they do.
In procurement.
Exactly.
With the state. So a lot of exciting things our way. Be sure to share, comment, let us know if you have any questions. As we're talking economics, or even as we're having our interview with Anna, let us know if there's anything you'd like to know. And or if you have comments, we will share them on air. All the positive comments will be shared about
got all the answers
Anna
if
and
you have any
myself.
questions.
All the negative comments will be shared about Xavier.
As always. I'm like a punching bag here, right?
Exactly. That's why we have you on.
Anything that goes wrong, it's like home. Anything that goes wrong, it's got to be Xavier.
It's got to be Xavier's fault.
That's right.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. We're really glad to have you here with us once again on a hot summer morning.
Beautiful
you can tell that the summer has arrived in Charlottesville. As always, we are presented by Emergent Financial Services. We are powered by Cristel Noel State Farm, and we are partnering with Forward Adelante, the Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia, or as Mike likes to remind me, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville. So thank you once again.
I have to remember that.
I remember that one.
Right.
He reminded me when I just said the. He said, no, it's the premier. And look, you already, Rosalia Torres says, good morning. Xavier is back. So she is glad that you are
finally,
back.
Somebody's glad.
Someone is glad that you are back on the show like regular.
I'm going to have to give her a hug someday.
You are going to have to give her a hug. Thank you, Leah, for watching our show for this morning. So, all right. I think we're going to dive right into it. We're going to be joined in about 15 minutes by Ana Antigua from Mi Casa Civil. But before we get into the real estate, I know there's a lot of things that affect real estate that, economically speaking, have been on Xavier's mind this morning.
So the idea was so much, I know Jerry always says that he'd love to just be at one of those morning Monday meetings where we just talk about things, right? And this is one of those topics where I've been scratching my head for the last couple of months, because it just doesn't matter what newspaper you open or what brand of internet you open, there's something about inflation. Mm-hmm. And I sit back and I say, when you think about inflation, what causes inflation, right? And most of the time, inflation is caused because things are going so well, the economy is going so well, that the demand for product is overwhelming the supply chain, right? And so what happens, the supply say, well, we can't, we're at capacity, we're at 95, 96, 97% capacity, we can't build anymore, we can't produce anymore at this point, we'd have to build new factories, et cetera. So prices begin to go up, right? Well, we're not even close to something like that right now, right? This economy is not basically.
You don't look at this and say this is late stage expansion.
No.
Where there's too much demand. There's too many people going out and buying things.
Exactly. So, and you look around, and certainly, I mean, it's just like prices have been skyrocketing across the way, right? And it just seems it doesn't matter what you look at, prices are up. It doesn't matter whether it's food product, whether it's commodities, like lumber, energy. And of course, I think the one area, I mean, so two things, right? One is, gas prices have an enormous impact on everything, right? So when you see gas prices, I mean, I think gas prices from last year, and I'm not even going to look at Charlottesville in a sense of, I mean, just nationally, from last year, at this time last year to today, right, we're up almost 100%. So what does that mean? So it means if you were paying $2 per gallon, you're now paying $4. Wow. If you're paying $1.50 back then, you're now paying $3. I mean, I remember during the crises, I went to Costco and bought gas at 99 cents a gallon at one point, right? It's $2.59. I mean, that's more than double, right? So all this filters to everything that you do, everything that anybody does. I mean, a trucker fills up his tank, right? You think he says, well, I'm going to eat it up? No. He says, now, in order for me to deliver this package, I got to charge you more. Mm-hmm. So the guys that deliver the package, well, I'm not going to eat this up, so now I have to
charge you more.
Charge somebody else more. Mm-hmm. Before you know it, the people that suffer the most is the consumer.
If you go into the store, you buy eggs.
Exactly.
All of a
sudden, the eggs
is more.
That's right. It's not like
deliver,
I mean,
more funds to the
to that perspective, right? It's not like all of a sudden there's less chickens, right? Exactly. There's the same number of chickens, same number of eggs, but now why is the eggs now 100% more? Because gas prices are up. Here's what scares me. I mean, without any doubt, I recognize the fact that we went from energy independent to we are now no longer energy independent, right? And, there's reasons for that, right? And I understand the fact that we want to move to clean energy. But there's a process that should happen. And I think the market should lead that process as opposed to government. So that's an issue, and you know how I feel about that. Mm-hmm. But I won't get into that part. What really concerns me more than anything else is we've heard the Fed over and over and over again say what? A little bit of inflation is not bad. Good. I mean, they've been saying that since literally 2008.
Sometimes a little. I mean, they've been saying we're okay with the average being higher than 2. So the average means sometimes you're 4, sometimes, I mean, think about it, a 2% average means sometimes you'll have 0, sometimes you'll have 4%
right.
inflation. So if they're saying we're okay with the average being higher than 2, then you're looking at potentially what they're really saying is, if inflation hits 5%, we're actually not going to do anything about it.
That's right, and that's exactly
stay there for an extended period for
because
us
without any doubt, inflation has been below 2% anyway for the last X number of years since 2009.
And we have no idea what they never. If you notice, they always leave out what's the time frame they're using for average. And if you're using a 10-year average of inflation,
that's a long.
We're going to need a lot of 4%,
right.
5% to average out the 0, 0, 0, 0
exactly.
that we had for a number of years.
Yeah, and so those are the issues that concern me. Is the fact that the Fed and in the old days meaning when I was, your age, for example, right, we had these things called bond vigilantes. And what were they? So in other words, the bond market was essentially investors. When investors felt that inflation was getting out of hand, right, they allowed interest rates to go up to slow down the economy, basically to squash inflation. We no longer have that. There's no longer bond vigilantes. Why? Because the biggest elephant in the market is the central banks, the Fed. Nobody else controls the bond market anymore other than the central banks. So if the central banks want to keep interest rates low, and they do for obvious reasons,
they'll just keep buying.
Yeah, meaning that if we're borrowing, I mean, I just heard this morning, we're looking at a $6 trillion infrastructure bill, right? So I'm saying $6 trillion. I mean, years ago, $6 trillion, people would have like, man, this is the end of the world, right? So we're borrowing $6 trillion. I'm pretty sure that the government doesn't want to pay 3, 4, 5% on that money. They want to pay 0. So interest rates have no, the relationship between interest rate and inflation is gone. So inflation can continue to go 4 or 5%.
They won't
interest rates will stay low for a very long period of time. And even, you may see the 30-year inch up a little bit, or maybe the 10-year inch up a little bit, even though the 10-year yield is down since inflation went up. So what does that tell you?
You
It
sit
tells
there
you
and say-
basically the Fed, the central banks of the world are controlling interest rates. We are now going to see high interest rates because inflation is up. So these are the things that scare me because as investors, as financial advisors, we always hear the word pivot, right? Used to be that there were times where you wanted to invest in bonds, right? Bonds,
you would sort of, I
and
guess,
you
balance
shift
between
back and
stocks
forth. That's
bonds,
right.
back and forth.
You sit here and you go, well, how do I, take a client and put them into 40% bonds that are yielding 2%, right? And think about, you have, there's two kinds of risk in the bond market. The first one is what they call interest rate risk. So if interest rates start to go up, the prices of bonds go down, right? Mm-hmm. The second risk is called credit risk. In other words, there's U.S. Treasury. That's right. There's the U.S. Treasury, so you assume under all scenarios that anything that deals with the Treasury or the government is
Not
safe.
gonna go bankrupt.
It's not going to go bankrupt. You'll get paid your money back, right? Once you start going into companies, there's AAA companies, AA companies, like Johnson & Johnson's, there's the IBMs, the Exxons, all the Apples, they're all high-quality companies. And then there's lesser quality companies. High-quality companies, you're only getting like 0.7 more interest. Lower quality companies, you're getting about 3% more. So basically, you're taking an enormous amount of risk to get, 0.7 more of interest? So instead of getting, 0.5%, you are now getting 1.2%, and that's supposed to make somebody happy. So as financial advisors, there are ways really to get much higher interest rates, right? But all of a sudden, the homework is enormous. And so
you worry more about the people that the people out there without financial advisors, that they used to be very simple to do it yourself. Just, get some bonds, some stocks, follow like the old 60-40 rule, 60% stocks, 40% bonds. Well, you can't really just do that anymore blindly. Like you can't just say, well, I'm going to put 60% in stocks, 40% in bonds, because then you'll look at it and say, why is my return so low?
So low. I remember.
And then I think the issue is then a lot of people will be incentivized to say, well, just push it out more stocks. You're only getting 4% by doing 60% stocks, 40% bonds. That's all right. Just go 80% stocks, 20% bonds. But now your risk is probably much higher. Depending on your age, your risk would be much higher than it really should be.
No, it is. It's not probably. It is much higher.
You don't have a financial advisor to really structure the portfolio and say, well, how can we get you more yield, more return here without taking that much risk, without saying, well, I'm just going to put you 80% in stocks and go from there. But it's a real challenge for people out there trying to navigate it themselves.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember there were a lot of retail people that used to just, every time there was a 3-month T-bill auction, people just go and buy 3-month T-bills for their personal portfolio. Meaning that I get 5-6% in my treasury bill portfolio, thank you very much. They were happy. And today that looks great, right? 5-6%.
5-6% on treasury.
So that's what used to happen, and that doesn't happen anymore, right? Because it just can't. When treasury bills are yielding literally zero, who's buying?
The average person is not.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
Go buy a treasury bill at zero.
Now, on the other hand, like everything else, there's pros and cons, right? There's one gentleman that always writes, and he says this is borrower's paradise, right? Because interest rates are so low that if you need to borrow money, you're in paradise.
It's perfect.
Right? Because interest rates are so low. So whether it means that you need to borrow to, build factories or open up, a company or whatever it may be, or buy a home, right? So low interest rates fuel different things, right?
Exactly.
For the saver, it's hell.
For the saver,
but for the borrower,
it's opportunities.
Exactly.
Because really, the interesting thing about interest rates is that it really is, what it's telling you, an interest rate is the fact that money today is worth more than money tomorrow, right? If I lend you $100, why do I want more than $100 back from you? A, because of the risk, right, that you don't repay me.
Exactly.
So you might as well pay me something in the meantime. But in reality, it's because, on a deeper level, it's because I know that $100 in my pocket today is worth more than $100 5 years from now. Between inflation and just even time. Would you rather have $100 today or $100 5 years from now? Give me
today.
$100 today.
Absolutely. Exactly.
I'm going to lend it to you, I need something back. The lower the interest rate, the more it's saying, well, today's money really isn't worth that much more than future money. So might as well borrow the future money and have it today, because I'm really not paying you that much. I'm not paying you very much of a price to take the future money and borrow it and use it today.
Right.
Because what I'm paying you to do that is almost zero in certain circumstances.
Right.
So here's a statistic that is probably going to blow your mind, but I was reading 2 months ago, 75% of all sovereign European bonds had negative interest rate, negative yields, right? I mean, they're down to about 60% now. But so do you realize what that means? That means that anybody today that has investments in European sovereign bonds are, and we're not even allowed to say this word in our business, right? But are guaranteed to lose money. And I can say that because at this point, that's mathematics. I mean, if you own something that has a -% as a yield, I can pretty much guarantee you that by the time you get your money back, you will have lost that percent.
They're literally giving you back less money than you gave them.
Exactly.
That's like, here, I'm lending you $100, and then you say, thank you, Alex, I'm going to give you back 95 in a couple of years. And it's like, that's literally saying, and the strength is you would literally be saying that means that future money is worth more than present money, which makes no logical sense
whatsoever.
In what world would you say,
yes,
yeah, I would rather have $95 tomorrow than $100 today? It doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, that's one of those things you go like this, right? That's right. I do that all day, but you know.
What do we do? Oh, we got some definite comments. Johnny Ornella says, buenos dias. Buenos dias, Johnny.
Buenos dias,
Johnny. Watching
Johnny.
The show. He's a great amigo del programa, as we like to say. Jerry, Xavier, welcome back. He loves you. And he said a great explanation on what is inflation.
Well, thank you.
So he appreciated
inflation
the
means that your pockets are emptier than they were yesterday. That's what it means.
I always thought it's like the Federal Reserve coming in every night. That's right. Put your $100 under your pillow, and every night like they sneak in and like take $1 out.
Exactly.
It is inflation.
And you woke up, you said, "Wait, I could swear it was $10 there. Now it's only $9."
Now it's only $9.
That's right.
And then the head of the Federal Reserve says, "Sorry, I needed a little
Thank
bit."
you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. But speaking then again of like the way inflation can impact other things and interest rates, how it changes the dynamic for borrowers as opposed to, savers. I mean, one of the places that we're definitely talking about interest rates all the time is with home buying,
right,
and with real estate.
I mean, that's a big piece of home buying, right? I mean, obviously there's the price of the home, but then the second is, can I afford it?
It's a very common question when they start going down, is clients will come to us and say, is this a good time to either buy a home or to refinance?
That's right. But refinance is easy.
Refinance is easy. Buying is a lot more difficult, which is why you need experts.
That's right.
To help you. And speaking of experts, we have one joining us now. We're really glad and excited to welcome on the show Ana Antigua from Mi Casa, Charlottesville, Mi Casa Seville, I should say. How are you doing today, Ana? Nice to have you on.
I am doing good. I am happy to be here.
That's a pleasure. Nice to have you on. I can see we're having some questions pop in for you. But before we even get to the audience questions, just the first one, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in the real estate business as a professional.
Well, I'll start off by saying I grew up saying I did not want to be a realtor. When I was about 14 years old, I was my mom's assistant. She was a realtor, and this was back in the time where everything wasn't as digital. So I was a little bit traumatized by the organization of all the paperwork I had to do.
All that paperwork, that's right.
So I remember telling my mom, I don't ever want to be a realtor. But fast forward, I graduated college, I got married, had 2 little ones, moved from Boston. And I found myself needing a job where I could work from home and also be with my kids. And that's where I met Candace Vanderlinde with Remax Realty Specialist.
Okay.
And I had a position with her as an administrator. And then that all of a sudden turned into a whole real estate career. So that's where everything started, and I wouldn't take it back. I love seeing people's stories unfold and watching them be able to realize their dreams.
That's a fun story.
Yeah, that's probably the best part, right? When you see somebody looking for a house and they've come to you and you can just see that they're looking for something, and then they see something they like, and then it ends up being their house. That has to be a good feeling.
It's a great feeling. It's like watching my kids open up gifts on Christmas Day, just like that.
No matter what's inside, it's the opening process.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly, that's a great one. So, one of the exciting reasons we were excited to find you is because we've been talking with Jerry just a number of times on I Love Seville about where are there Latino real estate agents?
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh, yes, there are. We're finding more and more as we reach out there. And how significant, I mean, as a Latino real estate agent, how significant do you see like the Latino home buying population being like in a few years? Where do you see it in a few years? Because I know already it's Latinos, I mean, we're growing very quickly population-wise, but where do you see it in terms of the home buying, like buying power?
Right. I like to say, that this, like in our culture, in our community, Latinos is part of who we are. Like Latinos are very much part of community. And I was speaking with somebody yesterday. We were in a setting, and they were like, I was just looking for somebody who could understand my language, who can understand where I'm coming from, who can understand the culture, in order to be able to make a move. And as soon as she said that, 2 other people spoke up and said, me too, me too, me too. So I think that a lot of people are out there waiting, but they need somebody to guide them and tell them this is what you need to do, or answer their questions in a way that they can understand it. They feel like they need to find that person to trust. So just like you looking for Latino realtors, there's people out there looking for them. And I think as soon as people start realizing that there is somebody out there to help you, it's definitely going to continue to go up. There's so many Latino home buyers.
Well, I would say that, I mean, the one thing when you think of Latinos, right, is that they cherish their family very much. It's almost a little bit like the Europeans, like the Italians.
We're very family-oriented.
Family-oriented, right? And so when you think about it, a house, right, is part of that shell that becomes their home. And so you can see that because they're, Latinos and they like to entertain and have other family members, so it makes it theirs. Yeah. So I think it's an area of the marketplace that is going to continue to boom, right, because that's what they like. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's very much part of our culture. What types of homes do you often see like Latinos looking for? I mean, is it townhouses, condos, single family? What are you seeing out there?
I will first say that it definitely depends on lifestyle and preference. I've seen, condos, townhomes, like all kinds of, they're looking for all kinds. But if I were to pick one, it's definitely going to be a single family, and we love our space. So as long as we have privacy and space.
A little yard for the barbecue, to roast a big pig, that's important.
Exactly, why is the human
All right, well,
that really appeals to you.
They do that in other countries too. We're not the only ones.
There you go, yeah.
And in Puerto Rico, they vary it.
That's right, yeah.
Absolutely. So we're gonna switch a little bit. Maybe we'll do a couple of questions in Spanish, and then we'll be right back to English.
Okay.
We'll do a little bilingual here.
Let's do it.
We'll practice our Spanish.
Yes.
So, su experiencia como un profesional latina en el espacio de los bienes raíces. I always have to remember it's not real estado.
Real estate.
No es real estado en español, es los bienes raíces. ¿Cómo es su experiencia?
Me gustaría hablar de experiencia como profesional latina en todo el aspecto. Sí. Ha sido muy retante. Creciendo en un hogar latino, te enseñan que tienes que mantenerte latina. Vives aquí, mi papá es militar, so me tocaba mudarme siempre, pero me recordaban, tú eres latina, no eres americana, eres latina. Y eso se vuelve un poco retante en el sentido de que tienes 2 realidades, ¿verdad? Sí. La realidad de ser latina, y después entras a la escuela y hablan inglés y la cultura es diferente. Ese aspecto me ha enseñado a crecer y a hacer preguntas y estar cómoda con sentirme incómoda.
Sí.
Y ha sido retante, pero lo bueno de eso y lo hermoso también trabajando como agente de bienes raíces es que he podido ver las cosas de 2 lentes. Los áreas que quizás mis colegas no pueden ver, tengo esa ventaja y nosotros como latinos tenemos una ventaja que podemos ver esos blind spots, esas partes ciegas. Sí. Yo creo que la palabra ha sido retante, pero en una manera positiva.
Sí.
Yo creo que es una de las cosas que es quizás más difícil, pero al mismo tiempo bueno. Es decir, las raíces de uno es de latinos o de cualquier lugar, si eres de China o de Sudamérica o de Italia, España, lo que sea, ¿no? Tienes las raíces que son de donde naciste o de donde su familia nació, ¿no? Y es importante recordar de esas raíces y celebrarlas, ¿no? Entonces vienes a un país y sin duda si vienes al país de donde no hablan inglés es difícil, ¿no? Y entonces es como usted dice, entonces estás pensando de cómo es que actúan los americanos, qué es cómo es que hablan, qué es lo que dicen, hay ciertas cosas que ellos no, por ejemplo, para mí abrazar a la gente es muy fácil, pero los americanos lo vas a abrazar y espérate, entonces pues es diferente, es cosas que uno tiene que aprender, ¿no? Sin duda pero yo creo que al tener las dos cosas, al tener esa raíz que es diferente y poder también ser parte de los Estados Unidos, de lo americano, es buenísimo, ¿no? Yo creo que en cierto sentido los inmigrantes, los latinos se hacen más fuertes a medida por eso, ¿no?
Sí. No, es la verdad. Sí. Y todo eso, hay como dice, hay ventajas y a veces, y no obstáculos, pero desafíos. Sí. Pero el proceso de superar los desafíos también es un tipo de ventaja.
Sí. Es hermoso. Así uno, como estaba diciendo, uno puede crecer y hacerse mejor.
Eso mismo. ¿No?
Sí. Como parte de esta conversación, ¿hay consejos que tiene usted para otros latinos o latinas que quieren entrar en el mundo de los bienes raíces? Sí. Mi consejo número 1 es que se busquen un mentor. Yo lo hice en una forma no directa, pero de verdad ha sido lo mejor. Tengo claro a mi mamá, claro que fue la número 1 en empujarme para ser agente, aunque yo no quería, pero tenía razón. Y por ejemplo, tengo mentores como Candice Vanderlinde, que sacó un Remax, y otro mentor que era el mentor de mi mamá, se llama Phil Black. Y ahora es mi mentor. Yo lo llamo, cualquier pregunta que tengo, él siempre está ahí. Creo que sí, que lo más importante, no importa si vas a ser agente de bienes raíces como yo, o si quieres hacer inversiones, o si quieres comprar tu casa y esa es tu primera inversión, busca a alguien que te pueda ayudar. Que tenga experiencia, que pueda estar ahí con tus preguntas. Creo que es una de las cosas que me ha ayudado a mí en mi vida entera, tener a alguien que yo pueda ir y pedir ayuda. Nunca puedes ser muy orgulloso para pedir ayuda.
Es verdad. Eso es muy importante. Las dos cosas. Primeramente, poder trabajar para alguien, aprender un poquito, ¿no? Y segundo, siempre tener la fe de que cualquier pregunta que uno hace es importante. Porque a veces, yo siempre me acuerdo cuando ustedes iban al colegio y las maestras...
No hay malas preguntas.
Yo decía a las maestras, primeramente, los muchachos a veces no saben qué preguntar porque no saben suficiente. Y segundo, es cosa de que cada uno es un poco diferente. Y normalmente, a veces los estudiantes y la gente misma piensan que si hacen una pregunta van a parecer un poco tontos, ¿no? Pero lo importante no es que seas tonto, es que no sabes de esa cosa. Por ejemplo, yo quizás haga preguntas de cómo cocinar algo o de cómo crear una casa, lo que sea, porque no sé cómo. Si alguien viene y estamos hablando de finanzas, espero que me hagan preguntas porque él no es financiero. ¿Entiendes? Así es la vida. Mientras más preguntas haces, más aprendes.
Así es.
No, es la verdad. In fact, I'm going to repeat. I think it was such good advice. I'm going to say it in English for our English audience.
What I said?
Anna's advice.
Jeez.
They hear enough from you.
I was ahead of
you were so excited. I was so excited. Oh, my advice was so great. No, just the importance of a mentor.
Yes.
And not being afraid to ask questions. That it's someone who can push you, someone you can go to ask any questions, and not being worried like Xavier, and I will repeat Xavier's point too, that not feeling that asking a question means somehow reflects that you are not knowledgeable or that you're used tonto, or that I'm dumb for asking a question. You're not. That's the beauty of the question. There's no such thing as a bad question.
No, exactly. Never.
You're there to learn and gain more knowledge. So that's really fantastic. So I mean, this is actually a double question. Speaking of mentors and things like that, because Jerry actually has in here a question that actually ties into one that we were thinking of. His question is, how do we get more Latinos into real estate in Central Virginia, which may tie into in the real estate business. So obviously you're coming across like mortgage loan originators and inspectors, insurance, title companies. Do you come across a lot of other Latinos, or would you like to see, I mean, more? What's been your experience working with other Latinos in this industry?
Yeah, I think if I get started on a list, I'll get in trouble that I didn't mention all of them. But starting off working with Candace, like we were looking, like if you start looking, you will find them. Now, I will say, because I saw. As one of the professionals that we use, the inspectors, I wish I had a Latino inspector. Like I don't see enough of that, but mortgage originators, loan officers, title. There's a lot available out there. But yeah, I would love to see more Latino home inspectors.
Now, do they require a special license or okay?
Yeah, so they have to go through a procedure.
That's what I thought.
And all that. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not just, take a look underneath the house and see, here's a bug, must be a termite, let me get termite inspection, right?
Yeah,
slightly more involved.
Slightly more than that.
Slightly more involved.
There's a crack in the foundation, it's not important. Just put a little caulking on it, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is awesome. And it's something I think we talked about a lot, even with Forward Adelante, the Latino network group. Sometimes there are businesses out there that there are in fact owned by Latinos, but if you don't do the deep dive, you wouldn't know it.
Exactly.
Because you'll just see a name, and it sometimes the name of the business doesn't. I mean, Emergent Financial Services. You don't read it and say, "Oh, it must be owned by Cubans."
Right.
Right. You sit there and say, "Oh, Emergent, okay."
Exactly.
So sometimes you have to do a little bit of a deep dive and just say, "Okay, I'm looking for a Latino who does this."
Yes, and when you start looking, you definitely will find it. Definitely will. That was my idea behind my logo. I wanted people to know that they could come to me, you know. And sometimes I'm like, well, I can help anyone. I'm available for anyone. So I'm kind of thinking of restructuring that. But that's the whole idea behind Mi Casa.
Well, it's very clever because, I mean, Mi Casa is one of those words that even if you don't speak Spanish, you kind of know.
That's right.
Mi Casa is my house.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because in reality, that's how we found it, right? So I was kind of thinking about, because this is after the Jerry show, and I said,
we're looking for like a Latino real estate
I wonder
panel.
and so my first thought was, I wonder if somebody has Mi Casa, Su Casa.
Cool.
And I saw Mi Casa, and I go to Alex, I said,
awesome.
Here, Mi Casa, but it's on Facebook, and I don't know anything about how to get there, so here you are.
That's awesome. That's great to hear.
It is, yeah, it's very exciting. So, all right, so here's a challenge question. So this is Xavier's question. All right, which you can kind of guess from the nature of it. So years ago, a study was made indicating Latinos actually had a lower default rate on mortgages than the average across the country, which talked about like being the opposite of what the stereotype is. It's like Latinos, we are very good at paying back our debts. We don't. I'll never forget one time. I'll never forget one time. This was a long time ago. It was with a different Latino real estate agent, Olga, our founder. She does something to me like a lot of Latinos, they didn't want to do the mortgages or go into any kind of debt because they would be like, no quiero enterrarme. Like, I don't want to get hooked on drugs. Like debt is this kind of drug.
That's right.
And I'm like, that's so Latino. Yes. Don't get me on that. So, can you explain like why that might be actually that Latinos have this lower default rate?
You kind of hit it right on the nail. I would like to think that I'm a proud Latino and we're great at being responsible, but that's not the reason. So one of the things that a lot of people come to me is about credit and how do they go about establishing credit. And they tell me, I never like credit. I don't want to be in debt.
Right.
I don't want, how can I pay faster? What can I just pay right away? And so they come to me and they want to get a loan, and I'm like, you have to have credit, so take these steps to go get credit. So kind of understanding that, I kind of go with what you are thinking. That's my same line of thinking. That many Latinos have. So I have two terms that I've come up with. Well, one I didn't, OPM, which is other people's money. And I grew up here, so I'm okay with OPM, like other people's money. But many of my clients are not okay with OPM. They're good with a term that I made up, which is HEM, and it's hard-earned money.
Hard-earned money. That's right.
They rather use their hard-earned money, and instead of using other people's money. So my idea is, along that line of hard-earned money, I want to pay. How can I pay faster? It's gonna pull you away from defaulting, and that's what I think. I could go so many ways with that because I also saw the same study, and I'm very passionate about helping our community. And there are some loan programs out there, kind of unfair. So I'm like, but they're such great. They pay well. They make their payments on time.
Exactly.
So yeah.
I mean, that's the crazy thing. In other words, they have a great record of paying off their mortgages, right? What they don't understand is that, unfortunately, the way it works here is that, you have that credit number, whether it's, 700, 800, whatever it may be, right? So you have to have a history. And the reason the bank wants the history is to prove that, yes, you pay off your debts on time, right? So you need a credit card to prove it, right? But that's not who they are.
Right.
The challenge, though, is that then when they go to get a loan at the bank, they say, well, you have no credit history. Therefore, instead of 3% interest, we got to charge you 6% interest.
Right.
And the poor guys end up paying more interest because they don't have a track record, right?
Yeah, ironically, you end up paying a higher interest rate because you have less debt.
So,
Yes.
the reason this came
perfect
about,
sense.
the reason it came about is that when I was working at at that time I was working at Cyprus, and so I was looking for mortgage product that had been packaged whose owners were Latinos, right? So I kept looking at that. Why? Because their interest on these mortgages were higher, right? And because they were higher, not a lot of people wanted them because they said, well, the credit's not that good. And I looked, I said, yeah, the credit's not good because I know who they are.
Yeah.
So I would buy them because I said, the history is great, so why not?
Exactly.
So, so all that research came about later anyway. But the issue is, we have to, unfortunately, it's part of an education process, right? You have to educate the Latinos, like, we understand what you're saying.
Right.
We understand you want to pay everything cash with your hard-earned money.
Right.
But you have to open up a credit card, charge whatever you want to charge, and pay it off at the end of the month.
Right.
Just as long as you pay it off at the end of the month, you don't have any interest, you don't have any, at that point, your debt is gone, right?
Yep.
But you create a history.
Right.
That history says, wow, they borrow, they pay. They borrow, they pay. They borrow, they pay. So at the time that they got their mortgage loan, it's like, whoa, 900.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's another part of the education process that I think all of us have to, help in making sure we get that information out, that it's for their benefit. We know where they're coming from because we know how they feel.
And
exactly.
I guess that's one of those advantages we were talking about.
Yeah.
Because if you weren't Latino, you would know that and say, well, why are these people not opening credit cards?
Exactly.
And we're Latino, we're like, I know exactly.
That's
I feel the same way.
Exactly.
I just had to be trained to do otherwise.
Yes. I find myself, like you said, many times having to take them into that education process. And they fight me on it a little bit. They're like, no, I don't want credit. Like, but we have to get credit.
That's right. It makes no sense, the debt credit to have credit to debt credit. It's like one of those endless circles.
Exactly.
That's
in the
right.
end, but
That's
at some
right.
point you got to get in there.
That's right. Yeah.
But
you got to start small, right? Because a credit card, they're going to give you a $3,000, $4,000 credit limit at first. So whoever it is that's lending you the money is at $3,000 risk, right?
Right.
Versus you go buy a house and the house is worth $350,000 or $400,000 and you're borrowing $300,000.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount that the bank says, wait a minute, I know nothing about you. So it's important to have that history.
To start doing
A
it.
report card. Yeah.
A report card, right?
Exactly, report card.
A+.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
Something I never saw. But
So when you go to the higher level, they said, "Oh, this person's very smart. They have an A+ on their report card."
There you go.
Exactly. So Ana, before we let you go, what are the best ways for people to reach you? So I know you're on Facebook as Mitasa Seville. So I think you can even put in the little act.
Yep.
Mitasa Seville. Spell it out. Mitasa Cville. What are some other ways? Are there other ways for people to reach you?
I am on Instagram as well. It's the same at Mi Casa Civil. And you can reach me by phone. I believe my information is on there as well.
On there as well. We can repeat it.
I can say it. Okay,
yeah, you can say it.
434-373-0960. And alternatively, you can use, again, micasacivil@gmail.com to reach me by email.
Fantastic.
And she has like, I think she says she's got like 200 houses for inventory.
I
So
do
anybody's looking to buy
not.
houses.
I do not. But if you call me, we'll figure it out. So.
Okay, exactly. There you go. You have the expertise, which is the important thing.
Expertise and patience in this side.
There you go. It's been so much fun to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We'll have you back. Hopefully we can get that, as we get more and more,
That's right.
we'll have that Latino real estate panel.
That'd be awesome.
That we've been dreaming of, and we'll have you on with some others, and we'll just talk real estate for,
That'd be fun.
That's awesome.
an hour.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much
It's been
for
a
joining
pleasure.
us.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Xavier, we have even more. So we got some financial questions also from Jerry. Real estate related, but I think he's thinking more investment-wise. So he wants to know, how can real estate investment, including e.g. landlord with tenant, help hedge against inflation? For instance, like a 30-year fixed mortgage, things like that.
So historically, without any doubt, real estate has been a great hedge against inflation. Now, it doesn't always work, right? And there are time periods where that didn't work. But it is a great way. And without any doubt, I would say that mortgage investing today, and now let's be careful. I think residential mortgage investing today, meaning buying mortgages of where the package is residential, is a great investment. On the commercial side, you really have to be very, very careful because of what happened during the pandemic, and there are lots of commercial mortgages have gone bankrupt, right? So you have to be very careful on that side. You get more return in there, but I would say for the retail investor, don't go there. For the retail investor, if you want to invest in mortgages, the Fannie, the Freddie, et cetera, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, those are great investments. One, they're especially Ginnie Mae, which is Government National Mortgage Association, they're guaranteed by the government, right? They give you more interest than treasuries, right? In some cases, they give you more yield than corporate bonds. So basically, they give you more than most credit, right? I don't think so. The issue with those type of mortgages, what they call prepayments, people pay them off faster, and therefore you think you're going to get a cash flow, and in the end, you don't get that cash flow. Given that rates are so low, who in their right mind would prepay a mortgage when you're paying 3%, right? The only thing that would happen is if somebody moves and therefore that mortgage gets paid off, right? But that's a risk that's hard to quantify, right? So I would say that without any doubt, that is a great way in today's world to invest, to look at investing. And is it a hedging against inflation is
what about
more
real estate ownership itself?
Well, real estate ownership, I was going to say hedging against inflation, real estate ownership probably is the best way. But again, let's you have to put on your thinking hat. Real estate has boomed in the last 12 months. So you already had an enormous rise in prices in real estate for the last 12 months. So if inflation continues at 3 or 4%, right, but you saw housing starts, new home sales, basically they went down, right, because it's become so expensive to build new homes. So you have to be careful because, sometimes real estate lags inflation and sometimes it doesn't. So you have to be very careful about that. So yes, investing in real estate over the long run is good. They are good investments.
And I think it also depends on your size in terms of how much you have to invest. Even if you can afford the real estate or to afford the down payment, your question there often is real estate is less liquid. So in other words, much less liquid. So if at some future point you say, well, I need 10% of my investment back, well, you can't just say, well, can I sell 10% of this home?
It's definitely it's that piece of your portfolio. It's a very long term, right?
Exactly.
So
you're basically not going to touch it until you liquidate the whole thing at some point.
You're looking at least 10 plus years before you can do something. So, but yes, it's historically that's been the case. Although again, there were time periods where inflation was rampant and real estate was not. So. There's no guarantees in anything.
And anything, as we know, we're digitally told for us to use the word guarantee.
Well, I used it the right way there.
You did use it
there
the
was
right
no
way.
guarantee.
There are no guarantees. No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
exactly.
for us to use it without the no in front
That's right.
is a problem, is a challenge. So I know we also have some news that we want to share.
We have some information we want to share with small businesses, right?
Absolutely. You want to go first? We'll do it bilingually and.
Sure. So I'll say it in English first, and then
Yeah.
I'll translate to Spanish.
Absolutely.
And I'm using my notes so I don't make any mistakes
Exactly.
on what's
This is to
important.
make sure
So this
that
is
our Spanish is good.
so these are funding opportunities for Virginia small business owners. And I think the opportunity is coming from the Southern Opportunity and Resilience, SOAR. It's a fund which is a new program that's built to support small businesses in the South and Southeast. And they're inviting business owners that were impacted by COVID-19, by the pandemic, to join. And there is a webinar. Now, interesting, the webinar said Friday, June 2nd. But if anybody takes out their calendar, June 2nd is not a Friday, but I think it meant this Friday. And I would certainly say that pencil it in for tomorrow. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, then obviously they meant June 2nd. But it's Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. And are we going to be sending a link? Is there a link that
We're going to be sharing some links to all of this on our Facebook page, Today y Mañana. Also, if you type in todaymañana.com, you can't put the Nye in the web browser, so it looks like Today y Mañana, but it's todaymañana.com. It'll take you straight to our Facebook page.
So that's important. So I think that's, again, it's a new loan product. And we'll see what exactly it entails. But anybody that's still looking for, I suspect, opportunities, loan opportunities, this is a great one. So for those that are Spanish listeners, hay un programa nuevo que es un apoyo para negocios pequeños. Se llama SOAR, es Southern Opportunity y Resilience, y son fondos, y hay un webinar que es para aprender sobre, es un producto de préstamos que es nuevo, y es disponible para negocios pequeños que fueron impactados de la pandemia COVID-19. Y hay un webinar, y como le dije en inglés, el webinar dice aquí es el viernes, junio 2, pero junio 2 no es un viernes, así que lo que yo haría es el viernes, yo creo que es mañana, el día que va a ser el webinar, entre las 11 y las 12 del día. Y si no es mañana, entonces el segundo día de junio, vuelvan de nuevo entre las 11 y las 12. Y como digo, son oportunidades para préstamos para negocios pequeños que fueron impactados por la pandemia.
Excellent. And I've got a little news, it's it's from Central Virginia Small Business Development Center. Good friends here. They have a lot of free resources, especially they have one-on-one resources. They have webinars, they have workshops, all free that you can reach out to them. You'll find them at Central Virginia Small Business Development Center, CVSBDC. Look them up on Facebook and wait till I have to do that in Spanish. CVSBDC. And then they're going to have 3 upcoming webinars, one on marketing and social media, June 7th at noon, one on starting your business, for those that want to think about starting, or that you just recently started. There's probably some great information there, June 8th at 1 p.m., and then a really big one, state local contracting, SWAM certification, June 10th at 10 a.m. The reason we mentioned that, so SWAM stands for Small Women and Minority Businesses.
Right.
A lot of the procurement that if you want to work with a state agency or a state institution like UVA, this even applies to like colleges.
Even for catering, right? If you want to cater for UVA.
If you want to cater for UVA, exactly. You can be counted for their procurement purposes as a minority business that they want to do business with, but only if you're SWAM certified. So in other words, if you're a Latino-owned business but you don't have the certification, they're not going to be able to count you officially as a minority business that they're working.
And they're looking for minorities, so that's the whole point.
They're looking to do it and have it count towards the goal that they're seeking to work to increase the diversity of their suppliers.
Exactly.
And so this is a huge opportunity. SWAM certification is not the easiest thing to do. I mean, as a business, you have everything you need. In other words, there's nothing you need to acquire that you don't already have from having started your business, but the process can be a little onerous
Right.
In terms of the website and navigating it. So having SBDC work you through it and walk you through the process and get connected to people that can even help you one-on-one for free and confidentially is really important. So be sure to share that information with anyone you know that's a small women or minority-owned business, particularly minority, because you can get put it under that umbrella of diversity that they're really pushing in state institutions.
That's right.
And yo voy a repetirlo en español ahora. Tenemos noticias de webinars la semana del 7 de junio por parte de CVSBDC. So Central Virginia Small Business Development Center. Voy a intentar en español. Es un equipo de expertos en el mundo de negocios que pueden ofrecer consejos gratis y confidencial. Ellos tienen un webinar sobre la mercadotecnia, marketing, y cómo usar las redes sociales. Es el 7 de junio a las 12. También hay un webinar sobre empezar su nuevo negocio, que es el 8 de junio a la 1 de la tarde. Y lo más importante, un webinar sobre SWAM certificación, SWAM. Es una certificación, es muy importante para hacer negocio con instituciones del Estado, como la Universidad de Virginia. Si ustedes quieren vender algo a la universidad, se puede ser catering, otro servicio, otro producto, cualquier producto.
Hacer paredes, construcción.
Construcción es muy importante. Y este tipo de certificación se puede representarle a usted como un negocio latino porque es una certificación que su negocio es pequeño y también que el dueño del negocio es una minoría, incluso latino. Y muchas instituciones del Estado quieren trabajar con negocios latinos, pero muchas veces no cuenta si el negocio no tiene su SWAM certificación. Entonces, este webinar tiene una explicación cómo obtener esta certificación y va a tener lugar a las 10 de junio, el 10 de junio a las 10. Es el 10 de junio a las 10 de la mañana. Por favor, se puede ver la dirección para registrar, es gratis también, en nuestra página de Facebook. También www.todaymañana.com. También en nuestra página de web de Facebook, Today y Mañana. Se puede ver todas las direcciones de estos webinars.
Sin duda, ya es muy importante que ellos entiendan que hay muchas. La universidad es un ejemplo perfecto aquí en Charlottesville, que están buscando negocios que son o pequeños o de mujeres o de minoridades como hispanos, ¿no? Y ellos tienen lo que se llama una cuota, es decir, quizás quieren un 40 o 50% de la gente que ellos emplean que sean diversas, ¿no? Y si no tiene la certificación, no cuenta como eso. Entonces, quizás van a buscar a otra persona que ustedes, ¿no?
Sí.
Entonces, es más fácil entrar a través con la certificación que si no la tiene. Así que es importante que la busquen.
Claro que sí. Es verdad. Y esta es toda la información en Today y Mañana. And so that's our
That
news
was good.
that we
That's
have.
important.
Always seek out Central Virginia Small Business Development Center. You can also get connected to them through CIC. So that's cicville.org. Ask for Catalina. She came on our show. So Catalina speaks
Catalina
Spanish.
must love you. I mean, you
I know,
mention her
I
every
must,
day. She says,
every
I'm
time she's like,
gonna have to change my phone.
Because Alex mentioned my name. And so find Catalina. She speaks Spanish, and so she can help you get connected to the resources that are either at CIC or at SBDC, which is hosted
That's right.
at CIC. So great resources there. And so this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was.
It was a lot of fun today.
Educational, fun.
A great guest. A lot of
And
great conversation in English.
it's always the guest is what makes the show, right?
It really
the
is.
guests
It really
and the viewers.
No one would come just to hear you and me.
Maybe
talk
me.
for an hour. Or maybe Jerry. Jerry would still be watching. He would say, "I love Xavier."
There you go. I see
Exactly. You have one big fan.
that and Leah. Right?
And Leah loves you too. So there we go. You would have two. You would have two in that case. And next week we're going to have some fun guests also. We're going to be joined both by Toto Sotelo. So she is an entrepreneur. She's the owner of Toto's Granola.
Yes,
here in
I remember.
Charlottesville. So we remember a good friend of Forward Adelante. So she's going to be joining us. And then we're also going to have a representative from the Seaville Track Club. So you can get your granola
and then start running.
Start running, and you can have your granola while you're running with the Seaville Track Club. So
brings back memories
from back in the day.
Yeah, high school memories
from little Xavier. So be sure to join us next week, 10:15, as always. And it's been a lot of fun, and it will be fun again.
It will be.
It's always a blast on today mañana. And thank you always, our guests, for joining us. Thank you to Cristel Noel for being our power and sponsor, for Forward Adelante, our partner. As always, to Jerry, to Judah, who runs the whole operation here. He's why Xavier and I look good.
That's right.
Because he knows what to do with the cameras and the microphones.
Which angle looks good.
Which angle looks the best.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There aren't too many angles here, but he finds it.
He finds one.
I think.
There may have been only one, but he found it. Jerry, thank you again. He does love it, Xavier.
Yeah. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you.
He may be the only one with the...
He made my day.
One of two with Leah, but he made your day.
That's right.
And thank you, as always, our guest, for joining us. Without you, there would be no show.
That's right.
We would be very lonely here without you watching us. So be sure to share. Let us know, as always, if you have any further questions. If there's a topic, last week, Vanessa Parkhill, thankfully, she sent us a question, said, I want to know about ESG,
That's
and
right.
we answered it. So be sure to let us know if there's any topics you'd like us to talk about, any other Latino businesses out there that you know and you want to give a little push. Say, come on. Today in Mañana, it's completely free. We love highlighting you all and talking with just the beautiful Latino entrepreneurs that there are in our community, and just making sure everyone knows about them and can share business with them.
Exactly.
So it's been a blast as always. Thank you all so much for joining us. And until next time, we will see you. Hasta mañana.